days, you best be interviewing the old-timers before it's too late. They've got a lot of great stories to tell.
You're going to find this to be quite a story. The last war ever fought in this country between white settlers and the Indians. It was fought mainly in southeastern Utah, and it lasted until 1923. The Indians, the Utes, Paiutes, and Navajos, being pushed back by the white settlers, were trying desperately to hold on to lands they felt were rightfully theirs. The Indians lost that last battle in 1923, but in the end they won the war. Washington gave in to their demands for reservation lands. Out of that long struggle comes the legend of Possey, the last war chief of the Paiutes. Richard Bingham tonight retells the story. It was classic Indian warfare for over 40 years, hitting the headlines in 1915 in a battle near Bluff, and again 8 years later in a last skirmish near Blanding, ending with the death of Possey. The names of the other Paiute war chiefs, Tesnegat, Polk, and Mancus Jim, are fading. But Possey lives on in legend and song. Steve Lacy has been fascinated with the story of Possey since the 5th grade.
The big fascination probably is the mystery surrounding his death, the romantic story between him and Tura, the shooting that took place.
Tura was the pretty sister of a rival chief named Polk, who apparently didn't want Possey for a brother-in-law and tried to keep Tura hidden. But the love affair had a tragic end. Possey, playing with a gun, accidentally fired it. The bullet hit Tura. It was the 1915 battle at Bluff that really brought Possey to public attention. Governor Charles Mabee personally came to meet him. He and the other war chiefs were brought to Salt Lake to see the power of the white man. They were treated like heroes. In 1923, Possey did it again. A daring rescue of 2 young Indians from a court trial at this schoolhouse in Blanding. Chester Cantsey was at a camp over in Westwater. He remembers seeing the posse coming out of Blanding in a cloud of dust, the sunlight shining on their guns. Chester said the posse came down into the canyon and up to the camp, and they were on their horses. The posse had guns in their hands and dragged him and his friends off their horses and threw them on the ground. Cantsey and many of the other Indians were taken to Blanding and put in a stockade near Parley Red's store. The posse then went after Possey and his band. Alan Black was a young boy, but remembers the day well.
It was Joe Bishop's boy. Ran out and jumped on old Possey's horse and ran out past our place. And the sheriff came along right after that and asked me if I could shoot a gun. I said, yes. And he had me a 30-30. And he said, well, if he comes back, gives you any problems, take it.
The Indians headed into a rugged section called Comb Ridge, following a rocky track known today as Possey's Trail. Soon there was some shooting. Bishop's boy was killed by a posse member.
He says, I waited till I could see that button on his shirt. I took aim at it and pulled the trigger right quick. I jumped to the other side of the tree and throwed my gun on the other fellow that was coming that way.
Then Possey was spotted on his black mare, riding toward the top of Comb Ridge. Shots were fired.
Possey kind of slumped over in the saddle and went out of sight over the hill right quick, and they didn't see him anymore. They didn't know what become of him.
The posse didn't really know whether or not Possey was wounded, but he was. And it was here he came, and here he died.
I think Possey made trouble. He wanted to be a big shot. I think that's the reason he interfered with these 2 boys' trial. He thought he'd go in there and lead them away and show the white men that he didn't have to obey their laws and regulations.
I was down here where the cave is.
Come here and you can see it.
It's not easy to get to Possey's grave. It's close to a spring down beneath the rimrock on the far side of Comb Wash. There's obviously no body there now. Len Lyman was 17 when Possey died. He says no one knows what happened to it. Yeah. If the Indians know, they won't say.
Well, I was born in Bluff, and my father moved to Blanding when I was 9 months old, one of the first half a dozen citizens to move to Blanding to start the town of Blanding. And that's where he raised his family. And my older brother was one of the what we called the Cowboys, a group of men that run their cattle together on the ranges and work together. And my brother John was one of this group, and he was deputy sheriff, and he had been taking care of these boys after they were arrested for robbing sheep camp and burning a bridge and things, and brought in and put under control. They didn't have a jail in Blanding, but he was taking care of them and keeping track of them and looking after them.
Well, the day after we got back, Marshal Ward, he was he wouldn't tell anybody anything about what happened. Very little. And some of these young fellows that got together, I say young fellows, they're about 26 or 7 along in there. But they wanted to come out and see what went on out here. So they decided that the best way to get on the tracks was to get me to come with them. And I showed them where I picked Marshal Ward up. And we all got on the horse tracks and followed him up into this saddle between the island and here. Then we lost, there wasn't any more tracks. They'd all walked through these brush and everything. We scouted around and finally found the grave up here. And we dug him up. I say those older fellows did it. I was long for a guide, I guess. I was 17 years old, but up and looked him over, and like I say, he had that wad of dough over his left eye. And we heard later that one of the other Indians hit him with the butt of a 6-shooter there. And we examined him more or less to see where his wound was and how bad he was. Made it painful to sit down. That's the easiest way to say it, I guess.
Well, I guess Chester stood and watched while they went past him, and they went down by Westwater, down in the canyon, like, and he watched, and the posse that was chasing the Indian shot at him. Wow. I guess the sheriff that was the one that was shooting turned back around, and he headed back towards Blanding and past Chester on the way again. And he was John Oliver, the sheriff. Well, he said he was home, and then they went down and got 3 horses. Then they brought him back to their camp, and they were, just riding around on their horses. And he looked, I guess, towards Blanding, and there was, it looked like a herd of, like in the movies. He said, shiny. I guess it was the reflection of the guns, that were shining, and they were coming. Wow.
This was the posse.
Mm-hmm.
Wakaronik rupu e wakukwen kwa nupo na pa wak. E pa numu tutina. Katuwa tumu tumayatena. Wana manikha. Etano ma kawa mana pa mana una pa un pa moneta. Unen monita.
Okay, I guess they came down into the canyon and up to their camp. And they were on their horses, and I guess they had the guns in their hands, and they dragged them off of their horses and threw them on the ground.
Oh, he asked me one time if I was scared of him. I told him no, and he said, "Well, how come you no scared?" I said, "Well, I'm just not afraid of you, Posey. That's all."
What did he do?
Well, he just kind of shrugged and went on about his work. Well, the story that I got from Dad was that he killed her, or killed his first wife there, because she didn't have squaw, because she didn't have a boy. It was a girl, so he killed her on that account. And then Polk made him marry his other sister, his ugly sister. So, or Polk said he'd kill him if he didn't. So that's kind of the way it stood.
So, made him marry the ugly sister. Was that a punishment? Or?
Yeah, that was a punishment for him killing the other sister, the first sister, his first wife. She was more, as Indians go, she was a prettier Indian than the other.
Is this the gun that was owned and carried by Posey?
Yes, according to Dad and according to Posey's oldest boy, Jess Posey. This was with Posey when he died, and Jess took it. And a few years later, why he gave it to my dad, while he was out there as Indian stockman out there in the Elm Canyon.
How did you get it?
Well, about 2 years before Dad's death, why he came to me. Well, I was over at the house there, and he said, "I want to give you something for your birthday." He said, "This is you're really entitled to it because you're the oldest of the family, and I'm just kind of passing it on down." So he gave me the revolver.
Is this the weapon he used to kill his first wife, do you think?
Well, I wouldn't say for sure because he had other weapons, and I don't know whether it was this one or other weapons that he had.
Big fascination probably is the mystery surrounding his death, the romantic story between him and Tura, the shooting that took place. I've always been fascinated with it. Probably the main reason is because Albert R. Lyman, who when I was in the 5th grade introduced me to Posey, and he remembered Posey very, very well, and I became excited because he showed me old photographs and his manuscript that he was working on, and I felt it was very interesting. So that's what got me started on it.
Now, tell us about the book.
Pearl Baker and myself have put together a book that we hope to be published this fall, and it's called Possey, The Last Indian War, and it traces Posey from an early boy up until the 1923 incident, and then it goes into a brief detail of what happened to the Indians after the 1923 war, after the stockade, and what happened to them. And it's a positive type of a story, and it's something that has needed to be told because Posey is probably ranking up there like Custer War, Wounded Knee, and I mean it was an important war. It was the last war, and it happened in 1923. And it's hard to believe to a lot of people that 60 some odd years ago that this happened in Utah, right in the middle of where everything was supposed to be civilized.
Now, was this the only battle, or had trouble with the Indians been going on for some time?
There had been trouble going on since 1880, the Pinhook Battle, in 1884 at Soldiers Crossing, in 1914 and 1915 down in Bluff, Posey, Polk, Tesnegat, Jess Posey, they were all involved in stirring up trouble, and that's when they took them to Salt Lake and tried to show them how powerful the American army was. That's when General Scott came down, and they treated them like heroes. They took them up there and they showed them the Walker Building, and they took them up to Fort Douglas and showed them a Gatling gun And then they took him to the silent movies, and that was scared them because they didn't know, they'd never experienced that before, and they thought it was ghosts up there, and it really scared them. But it was very exciting. And then Tesnegat was sent to Denver and for trial. They acquitted him. He spent time over there and had proposals of marriage from all of the rich ladies, and they wined and dined him like he was royalty. And the same thing with Possey when they went to Salt Lake. They had taken the 4 Indians to Salt Lake, and there was approximately 20,000 people that showed up at the train station just down from KSL Studios.
Now, the Ute Indians here have their own version of the Posey story, and the white people here at Blanding have their version of it. How much of it is legend and how much is truth, do you think?
Well, I don't think we'll ever know for sure, but it's interesting to keep in perspective both points of view, and so that they don't get lost, because there's certain aspects of both that are very valid, and it's just so important not to lose those concepts. I tend to believe that the white version is the correct version, but that I could be completely wrong. I mean, there's no way to actually to prove or disprove one way or the other.